Senator Duckworth, anything further? I have a couple of questions.
Well, if you're going to do second round, I'll do some as well.
If you want to, you can.
Okay.
Please.
Oh,
You go and I'll wrap up.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the days leading up to the Trump administration issuing an emergency order mandating a significant reduction in flights, separate and apart from restrictions triggered by ATC's staffing shortages, the Trump administration claimed that this order was dictated by data. As Secretary Duffy stated, and I quote, "The data will dictate what we are going to do, data-driven, safety-driven," end quote. Now, the irony is that under normal circumstances, nobody would cheer louder than me for evidence of FAA changing its culture to be more proactive in using real-time safety data and, most importantly, making tough decisions to prevent deadly incidents. That is why the Trump administration's failure to transparently disclose the data underlying its emergency order, combined with Secretary Duffy's overt threats to ramp up flight restrictions unless Democrats rolled over and just voted for whatever plan Republicans proposed, was and remains deeply disappointing. It fails to strengthen confidence in good government, and the American people are understandably suspicious of a DOT and FAA that does not show its work. I have a fifth grader who I work with every day saying, "Honey, I know you're doing long division, but you need to show your work, otherwise your teacher thinks you use a calculator." Right now, frankly, the FAA's failure to respond to basic information requests from my office and the ranking member's office over the past few weeks does nothing to dispel accusations that the Trump administration weaponized our aviation industry against the American people to score partisan political points. In justifying its emergency order, FAA noted that voluntary safety reports submitted in October indicated that operators, presumably many employees of the air carriers that A4A represents, had concerns about the safety of the national airspace system, despite the mitigation measures that had been put in place. Governor Sununu, did any airlines proactively restrict flight volumes independent of staffing triggers, or even preemptively contact FAA to recommend that the agency consider emergency action along the lines of the emergency order that the FAA eventually issued? I know you're new to the organization.
I don't believe that any of the carriers actually said we're going to cancel flights because of this, but to be clear, the carriers, the Airlines for America and the FAA were talking constantly about data, about what they're seeing, staffing triggers, hot spots. And I would note that what was interesting about this shutdown from the first day on October 1st all the way to the end, there was never consistency. It wasn't like the Northeast has a problem. It was one day it was in the West, one day it was in Newark, one day it was Burbank, one day it was Nashville. So it was very hard to manage. It was almost like playing whack-a-mole. But at no time did the carriers say, we have to take more flights out. They said, we just need to put more mitigation strategies in to ensure safety, which they did, resulting in the delays, and that's why the cancellations were well under 1% for the bulk of October till the pressures really built.
So in that emergency order, the FAA stated the agency had, and I quote, "observed evidence of increased stress on the national air traffic system and aviation safety data, particularly 40 high-traffic airports," which I think is what you're speaking to. Unfortunately, FAA did not provide further insight into precisely what evidence and what specific metrics it used to determine that emergency order was required to immediately halt flights at high-traffic airports. Did your members provide any data to FAA, or did they share any data to you behind that?
Well, the biggest
especially
piece,
at those 40, because I haven't seen it and I've been requesting it.
Well, the biggest piece of data is incredibly obvious, all the staffing call-outs. The fact that was increasing day by day by day, the fact that you had, I mean, Nick, you could probably give the more accurate data. On Halloween alone, the staffing triggers and call-outs from just the morning to the afternoon skyrocketed. And then sometimes we'd see that go down, but Saturday was brutal, Sunday went down, Monday, Tuesday were, so the data that, at least that we were looking at, were those staffing triggers and call-outs, and we were watching that hour by hour. And post Halloween, it really never went down. It was really, really tough. Beyond that, I mean, I'd have to refer to the FAA for any other data points, but those are the ones that we specifically were looking at. And then there were the close calls.
So where did you, and that data came to you from the FAA, or how did you get the call-out data on how many air traffic controllers?
We get that data literally hourly. There's a couple different services that we use. So we get morning, I can see what they call staffing triggers, and then that gets, again, Nick can probably give you more information, but that can get to actual potential shutdowns where the actual towers just don't become sustainable to be manned in terms of landing and not landing. And we had a couple instances there. And if I may, shortly before the FAA came to us and said, look, we may need to talk about forced cancellations, you had 3 or 4 close calls on the taxiways, physical close calls. So that was clearly of concern. And I'm not here to defend the FAA. They can defend themselves. But I think they said, look, to the point that was made earlier, we want to be preventative here. We're not going to wait for a tragedy or a crisis to happen. Let's be preventative and make sure we can keep the airspace viable. Let's not be like, frankly, the rest of government and wait for a tragedy before we do something. They said, we're going to get ahead of it. And that was really tough for the airlines, but if you talk to the CEOs, they'll all say it was the right thing to do. Being safe and smart is always best, and staying ahead of it and being proactive. And those number of call-outs were huge. Other data, I'd have to just refer to the FAA. But.
My problem is that there's like all this different call-out data. So I've been trying to get a hold of all of the data. And if you guys were getting specific data from the FAA, I want to see that because the FAA has not provided it. And at one point, Secretary Duffy said he was getting 56 retirements a day. That was a number he put out, which I've not seen that backed up anywhere. And if it is, then I would need to know that. I'm just deeply concerned that there is a nebulous term of the data, and we don't know what that is. And if we want to look towards the future and do better the next time and do better even now, we need to know what that data is, and we should be sharing that data. And it deeply concerns me that FAA is not actually sharing the same set of data with everyone so that we're operating off of the same sheet of music.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the only thing we really looked at was those call-outs. I don't mean to put Nick on the spot, but there's a couple different areas where I think you can see the actual number of call-outs and the triggers. We subscribe to a system that gives us that data, but.
But yet,
Yeah.
Secretary Duffy put out a number that was not consistent.
Thank you.